Osiris.
We're mass communicating. We're mass communicating. We're mass communicating.
Welcome back to Touchdowns All Day. I am your host, Max Dawson, taking you through the past, present, and future of the Disco Biscuits. It's been a minute since we've been mass communicating. When I put the finishing touches on our last episode of 2024, I never anticipated it would be more than a month before we were back together here on the pod. However, Mother Nature had some other plans for me. I was one of the people who was impacted by the Palisades fires in Los Angeles. Fortunately, I was safe. I was evacuated for 9 days, but many in the Disco Biscuits community were not quite so lucky. And so as we embark on this new year of Touchdowns All Day, I encourage you all to give a little thought to those in the Disco Biscuits community who lost their homes or loved ones during the fires. Well, right after the fires, it was time for tour, and my tour plans were obviously impacted by the events taking place here back home. I was able to make it out, however, to the Warfield in San Francisco for what was a truly special experience. The Warfield's always been a bucket list venue for me somehow. I have never made it there despite having lived in California for 13, 14 years, and it very much lived up to the hype. More importantly, the band lived up to the expectations we all had for them that night. You heard John on a recent episode of Touchdowns All Day talk about how the band has had a number of near misses with the Warfield and that they wanted to do something special for their first performance there. Well, they certainly did. A show that many people, myself included, consider to be one of, if not the best, of the 2025 Bubble Tour. The band has once again been on fire, and in particular, my co-host John Barber has been on fire, playing like a madman. Barber is shredding again, ladies and gentlemen, but he's also still playing that amazing rhythm guitar, and it really is a renaissance, a Barber renaissance right now. I can't wait until he is off the road and he and I can regroup and get back to podcasting together. John and I have a lot of fun ideas for interviews and episodes that we would like to do in 2025. And so stay tuned as he and I come up with our grand plan for how to keep you guys all informed, especially when the band is off the road over the next few months. But before then, we have so many more shows. We just finished the Southern California run. The band is making their way through the desert. The destination is Philadelphia's favorite suburb. I'm talking, of course, about Denver, Colorado, where we will all descend Super Bowl weekend for a tractor beam show, followed by the final show of this first Western leg of the 2025 Bubble Tour at the Mission Ballroom in Denver. John and I want to hear from you. Touchdowns All Day hotline, 424-666-SIYD, number to call. You could also reach us at TDADbaby on X and at Touchdowns All Day on Instagram. For this, our first episode of the year, I wanted to highlight the fan community, and specifically the women in the Disco Biscuits fan community. Our three guests today are moderators of And the Ladies, which is a Facebook group that has been set up specifically to create an online home for the women of the Disco Biscuits scene. And the Ladies is a private community, and so I've never been in there. I've only heard about it. I know it exists, but I don't know about the sort of conversations and the sort of connections that are formed within there. And so I thought I would have on my friends, Laura Heifetz-Brooks, Naya Seaton, and Chelsea Waxenberg. Laura, who is the founder of And the Ladies, and Naya and Chelsea, who are two of the moderators of this group, to tell me more about this women's only space that they've created within the community. Naya, Chelsea, Laura, welcome to Touchdowns All Day.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having us, Max.
So I wanted to start out by giving you the opportunity to introduce yourselves, and I thought maybe you'd just tell us all where you're from, what you do in real life, and when you first started seeing the biscuits.
I'm the baby, so I guess I'll go first. So I am Chelsea Waxenberg. I hail from Long Island, New York, and I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing and Sales Enablement at a data company, and I started seeing the biscuits in '09. So I think I'm technically the noob of the group here.
Okay, I'm Naya Seaton. I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My daytime job is I work for PennDOT. Everybody loves the Department of Transportation. But I am also a mother of 3 children, ages from 6 to 16. And I've been seeing the Disco Biscuits since 98, but I claim 99 just because that's what I first actually went to see them, to see the biscuits primarily was at Melstock.
I'm Laura Heifetz-Brooks, and I've also been seeing the band since 98, 99. I found them because of the Funky Bitches, actually, which was a women's group for the Fish, but they allowed men in there, and there were a couple of guys who are still very much into the biscuit scene now that were looking for new fans to bring to shows, and I just bonded with them and fell in love with the biscuits. But I'm also from New York, Long Island, New York City. I work in auctions right now as an office manager and buyer relations, which is super fun and nerdy, and spent a lot of time in the food industry, and yeah, just absolutely I'm having like a revolution with the band right now. So I'm having a great time to be back.
What exactly is And the Ladies?
Basically, And the Ladies is an all women's group. If you identify as a woman or female, or I should say as a girl or a woman, it's a safe place that was created for us all to get together to be able to discuss just everyday life things, but primarily it was about the Disco Biscuits that we all had in common. One thing that we all realize is it being a masculine dominated community is that a lot of us didn't feel we had a voice. We could be on Fantasy Tour, we could be on Bisco Radio Forum, which people didn't even know Bisco Radio had a forum. But it was like very few and far between where a female would speak up and actually be taken seriously. So there were like little side groups, but Laura created And the Ladies to give us a space just to be actual girls. And the funny thing is I noticed a lot of us were girls that primarily hung out with guys a lot of time. Kind of like, we don't hang out with that many girls because girls are catty. However, what we found in this group is that because we are the black sheep as a community all together, so many like-minded women came together, and it's a sisterhood that is just undeniably like insane. Everybody loves each other. Girls aren't really backstabby. They actually are very supportive. It's not like what you read on like Fish Chicks, girls going back and forth. It's actually a sisterhood that I wouldn't trade for the world. I mean, Laura and I became very good friends, as well as me and Chelsea. We all check in on each other all the time. So it's just really a place that just created a sisterhood that made it more refined and more close-knit than anything.
Having spent a good amount of time in Fish Chicks and Funky Bitches and Fish Chicks itself has like 30 different side groups. And sometimes it's just easier to talk about your real life, whether it's, personal issues or fashion design or whatever else, with like-minded people who love the same band as you, people who like have the same travel time or like just party the same way. And so we kind of understand each other in a different way than just random friends from our childhood or work or whatnot. So I think that has become like a safe haven, and it's hard to like, let's say, advertise a really cute shirt that you might have designed for a bunch of chicks to wear to a biscuit show in, let's say, I don't know, the Biscuits on Facebook, where like it's just mostly a bunch of guys who are just going to be like, it just works. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how it was created, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would love to know the history.
Yeah. So I think it was around January of 2018. Yeah, it was right after like the New Year's run. And I was actually on kind of a show hiatus. I was dating someone who was a fish fan at the time, and he really didn't like biscuits, but he was cool with me traveling to see them with other friends. But like, just there's something missing when you can't be with your partner. You can't share that love with your partner. And so I was looking for new friends and ways to like really connect back in the scene. And there was a small girls group on Facebook, but I would say it kind of had like a mean spirit, and I felt very uncomfortable there. I didn't really care for the people that were in it, and it didn't feel like home to me. And one night I just was like, all right, like I love puns. And I was just like, what would be a fun girl name? Like, oh, ladybugs. I don't know. And I was like, all right, and the ladies. Like, it's just such a weird statement, but it just works. It's like, and the ladies, we matter. Like, we are the whole night. So I created it and I started posting into fish chicks and hit up with some of my older biscuit friends on Facebook. And all of a sudden, it just like blew up into a couple hundred people almost instantly. But I really didn't have like much of a vision beyond just trying to reconnect with my friends. And I didn't even know like what exactly our mission was. And I didn't know anything about moderating. There were probably guys slipping in. I was just trying to do my best to like approve people and, do the best I can. And somebody, one of the women, Cheryl, was like, hey, we really need moderators. And we put it out there. I think Naya was one of the first moderators that we had. Like, people just stepped up instantly to want to care about this community, and it grew. And we're up to like, I think 1850 people now, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And is the focus exclusively on biscuits? I mean, I know that you touch on other topics, but does it remain a disco biscuits, female identifying women and girls fan group?
Well, the Disco Biscuits is more than just that one band, right? Like, we have so many other incredible bands in our scene that we encourage each other to go to. I think Chelsea will talk about the band that she helps manage. There's Solar Circuit, which is women, fronted. There's so many other bands that play all over the country that we help promote, because I want to be able to go to a show and I want to know that there's going to be girls there. I mean, like 3 weeks ago, DJ Brownie played in town, and like, I knew that if I didn't help like talk about it, people weren't going to go. And we all stayed for the other band. We all like had a blast. It's not just the Disco Biscuits.
So I want to ask you a little bit more about the sort of impetus for the group, apart from the desire to connect with other women, the experiences you were having in other online forums. Can you talk a little bit more about what it's like to be a woman in some of these spaces? And I think it's no exaggeration to say that a lot of them are very male dominated. Yeah.
I mean, men often can be intimidating or sexualizing, or, I mean, even just dominating the conversation. But I think sometimes people like to out funny each other, out mean each other. I don't know what the right word is for that, but I sometimes even get into that mindset too. And I know from my past like fantasy tour years, I can be a bit of a bully as well. And I think over the last 20 years, I've learned to tone it down and kind of embrace what it means to be like kind of a tour mama and really care about throwing a positive energy out into our community. So it can be hard to like just participate in a conversation if you make one little mistake, if you say the wrong song name, or like, it's just so easy for people to pile on you. And sometimes that feels like a male dominated thing. Now, a lot of this is online. So sometimes it's over imagined, right? Like, it's easy to think that like, oh, if 10 guys are saying like, oh, you're stupid, well, then guys are bullying you. But maybe that's a little bit in our heads, but it's still it's up to us to kind of empower each other to feel comfortable to talk about it. And now I feel very confident talking in all groups, and I see that there are other women involved as well. So I don't feel like I'm just one person shouting into that wind.
Does the sort of experiences you're describing in some of those forums, is that something that you experience at the shows as well? Because it's funny when you think about it, there might be 70, 80 shows a year these days, which is quite a lot. You personally might get to see 5, 10 if you're lucky. But then there's all the months, the hours, the days that you spend interacting with other Biscuits fans online. And that's a big part of the fun of being a jam band fan, is talking about favorite shows and sets, or making memes, or just, celebrating the culture. But I guess I wanted to know if there is an in real life component that the ladies is a response to as well.
I look forward to hearing what everyone else wants to say about this. For me, not so much. I think a lot of my Biscuit years were kind of spent in the shadows as I went through depression. I partied differently, less than other people, or differently than other people. I think I never really felt like I was in the spotlight. Now that I have a lot more confidence in my skin, I'm currently single, I'm more flirtatious, I want to be upfront, I feel very welcomed. But I definitely have seen people feel uncomfortable. I've seen women come to shows that have just broken up with people and don't know where they belong, or sometimes even girls will kind of dominate. It's not just against men. I think sometimes some women feel uncomfortable trying to enter a group of friends just because they want to be up front. And I personally have a mission to kind of keep an eye out and let people come and try, where I'm standing, and, maybe don't stand there all night, but, I don't personally feel like I'm unwelcome, but I would love to hear what everyone else says.
Yeah, no, I definitely echo that. I think, some of the more meaner or bullying sentiment happens primarily online. When I go to a show, I feel pretty good vibes around me. I feel welcome pretty much wherever I go, and there's lots of familiar faces. But, to a point that we were riffing on before the podcast, Max, there's lots of new faces coming in. So I think it's more important than ever to continue that positive energy and make sure that folks around you feel welcome regardless of their gender. Act with respect and just make sure that, you're welcoming the people around you, since there's so many new faces coming to every show.
And I would like to interject and say, when Laura was saying that she's kind of like another face of the crowd, kind of in the background, I stick out like a sore thumb. I'm African American, so it's oh, well, who's that? Who's that person? It's there's a few of us that were out and about. One of my favorite people that I've met in the community was Natron. I don't know if you guys remember him. I know Laura does.
Absolutely.
Also, may he rest in peace, Johan. Yo was one of the most incredible people from Philadelphia that was a little bit younger than I am, who was a great musician, but he loved the Biscuits as much as I did, or as I do, I should say. And the one thing is when I would go to Fish shows or to Dead related shows, I really felt more out of place. I felt like I was the black sheep, literally. When I started seeing the Biscuits, I actually was welcomed in more than anything. And when it comes to the male perspective, it was never like they were hitting on me, but they literally embraced me, where I have a band of brothers that they would do anything for me at any given time. They're very protective. They're very sweet. And I hate to give it away, but the Biscuit boys are very, I don't want to say emo, but they are very sensitive beings. They might seem tough, but when you get to know them, they have one of the biggest hearts in the world.
Yeah, I agree with that fully.
So, I have an amazing little collection of 38-year-old male best friends, and I'm 47. It's bizarre and beautiful, and I do feel like not just a big sister, but a best friend to some of these guys.
I think that there are tendencies in certain corners of the world or the online world to perceive women's only spaces, for example, as exclusionary, as a form of reverse sexism. And that's certainly not what I'm hearing from you all. This isn't about excluding men. It's about embracing the men in your lives. It's about being part of a community, but also having a place that you can retreat to occasionally where you can expose sides of yourself that maybe you would feel vulnerable exposing in other contexts. And I think that that's something that's important to recognize that when people want to be amongst other people who share similar sets of experiences with them, that can make the entire totality a stronger collective, as opposed to create fissures. It's not the ladies versus the boys. It's the ladies as a place where women and female identifying people can share experiences, support one another, and also communicate with, connect with, see shows with, have friendships with a variety of different types of people.
Yeah, you hit it on the head.
Absolutely. I think we empower women to feel comfortable participating in the full scene. 100%.
That's amazing. Well, on that note, what are the sorts of support that you provide in the community, formally, informally? What does it look like on a daily basis?
Whether it is at a show or online, we've really been just about keeping an eye out for anybody who might need a little extra care, like a smile, glass of water, or shoulder to cry on, or a cheerleading squad. Sometimes you're just like on a run with a bunch of guys and need to find some female energy, or maybe a feminine product or something, and you're in your hotel room and you might want to make a post. We're all kind of up. There's always somebody awake to help hook you up with that positive energy or physical hug or whatnot.
I think that's right. I think we're a very welcoming music community. We watch other groups like disband right and left, and now more than ever, like I said, it's every fan's mission to make sure the Disco Biscuits community continues to grow and thrive. So we've had kind of spin-off groups happen from this, which I think we'll talk about in a little bit. But that kind of support is provided, like other avenues for ladies in our group to pursue interests and participate in events and such. But yeah, I mean, look, we're here to basically oversee what's happening in our group and in the community and make sure that our members feel safe and supported always. A couple of other examples that I can provide, like we have some rules, they're important. There's not many of them. One of them is around, not excessively posting like GoFundMes, for example. But there are certain times when things happen in our community where we do need to post a GoFundMe or rally around raising money or awareness for either, a member of our group that's going through something, things of that nature. So I think that as a moderating team, we're careful about when and how we exercise those type of fundraisers, but it's really, really important to rally as a group and support ladies in need too.
One of the cool things about Anna Ladies is when it seems to be home based a lot of times, but the ladies' restroom. I cannot tell you how many people I've met in the restroom that were like, "Oh, you're in the ladies? Oh my goodness!" And it's like, and you hear other people behind you talking about the same thing, and I crack up every time. And then in our group, girls will always post the pictures of, "I met this person," and it's always in the bathroom. So yeah, we do go to the bathroom together, but we also come out of the bathroom with a new friend. But it's just the fact that that could have happened years ago, but it was less likely to happen. So this group kind of really does make people feel a little bit more comfortable to be more, more confident and forthcoming to speak to another woman, because, women, we kind of don't get along in a sense when we don't know each other. We're very territorial. We put our guards up. Oh, she's pretty, she's probably not nice, or, oh, that girl's wild, she probably sucks. And then here it is, you just find out, like, we're all just women that are here. I guess you could say we just came for the chicks at times too, because there's just, you don't find that many girls. Well, yeah. No, I'm serious. Well, I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to be sexual, but just the fact of just having a female companion. I have more female friends now than I ever have. And if I were to do a survey, probably about 95% of them listen to the disco.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say that for sure. I think one other thing that we do on a smaller level is that we give confidence towards women who want to step into a more leadership role that never had that confidence before. And that definitely includes myself. We, as a moderating or the ModMin team, we're 11 women right now. We're often reevaluating who belongs as a ModMin. People have come and go. People have gone to have children and don't have time to, pay attention or have different jobs or just don't really want to anymore. And some wonderful women like Chelsea and other younger women have stepped into that role. People that know a lot of the younger scene that I just don't even know. So I can't lead a group of people I don't really know their mindset of. So it's really been cool to see other people step into that role and help us out with that. And also just to run side groups like the Healthy Ladies and other side projects. And we welcome anybody who has ideas that they want to create for a group of women that happen to love the Disco Biscuits. Come to us. If you want to join the mod team, come talk to us. If you want to create a project, come talk to us. And I think that's rare, in our community.
What sort of steps do you take to keep things positive and supportive? Because there's one thing I know about online forums is they can very quickly devolve into spaces where there's almost like a competitive level of bullying. And that's as true of political forums or forums for people who are fans of a certain sports team or movie director as it is of jam bands.
To be honest, we don't have a lot of controversial conversations. That surprises me in some ways. And sometimes, I'd like to see more of that, but I also love that we kind of do keep the peace. We recently did have a little bit of a blow up about a week ago, and I could see both sides. I was working when it was happening, so it was interesting to watch it unfold and really take both sides and understand where everyone was coming from. But I think we all pretty much just kind of let it unfold for a while because everyone has their reasons for why they're saying what they're saying, and you can have a very strong behavior when you're at a show, especially if you're, partying or you're feeling very confident or you're just, and whatever reason you might say things or behave in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be proud of when you go home. And it was interesting to watch how that unfolded.
I think one of the keys to it is just making sure that the conversation stays productive and respectful, right? And that's kind of a big part of the moderating. And, a big deal too is just keeping the subject matter of the group private. And that helps with moderation as well. As pretty much anyone who knows the group knows, the subject matter is really private and it's important for it to stay private. It lets people open and share and have those deeper conversations. And like I mentioned, we have a few rules. They're really important though, and they're really all about keeping our ladies secure and making sure that they feel able to be open. So, for example, protecting identities is really important to make sure that our members are comfortable, whether they've been around for 30 years or they just showed up 3 shows ago. We really aim to foster that comfortable environment for all of our ladies. And yeah, I mean, we've mentioned this a few times at this point, but the jam band scene in general, not just the biscuit scene, tends to have that really heavy, sometimes intimidating masculine energy. And look, I love this energy. I think we all love it. It's part of the lore of the scene. But having this haven where female individuals can relate in a non-judgmental way is a gap that I don't think we even knew that we had until we filled it. And so, the vibes in the group are very open. They're welcoming. We have a really big kind of anti-negativity and anti-bullying stance in the group. And that allows women to chat about topics that they might not feel as comfortable chatting about in other forums. So I think, the take home here is that moderation of the dialogue, frequent reminders about our rules, vibe checks, and just helping to keep the conversation positive and safe is important. And look, like at the end of the day, every single member in the group is really self-accountable for the energy that they're bringing to the table in the group, at shows, in other groups. And I think that we have seen a lot of success with this kind of, self-accountability that we put on our members.
Absolutely.
I think whenever things start to get a little controversial, our team of, like I said, 11 women of the Modmins very quickly jump in to like privately message someone and say, like, do you really want to have this conversation? Do you really want to be calling out, an old friend of yours, or, naming names, or, putting yourself out there? Like, and then if they really do, then, we allow it to continue. But I mean, even I've said things in tones that I'm not proud of. And I appreciate that someone comes to me instantly and was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't say it that way. Maybe reword it before we represent it. And I think that we have a very powerful team that takes care of that quickly.
I wanted to know, just in general, what sort of topics get discussed on a daily basis in the ladies. And in a certain way, this is sort of like me standing outside the ladies' room. The door opens. I see you guys all in there. You're laughing and having a good time. I'm like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall. I wish I could know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, we can give you a little bit of a peekaboo. It really is almost anything from like discussing the music, our favorite songs, our how much we want Jamelia to come back. Naya is really great at posting the links to every live stream and just drumming up really thoughtful conversation about the band itself. But then it goes to like inspiring each other to create, trade and selling merch, either just beautiful or empowering clothes that people feel comfortable in, whether it's biscuit related or not. Fashion advice, like there have been threads where like I'm in the hotel room and I'm like, does this look good? And people are like, yeah, or like, yeah, maybe change your shoes, or like, things like that. To like really personal stuff that's like, sexuality, childcare, healthcare. I've seen really everything. Sometimes it gets pretty dark. Like people have had a very bad experience with venue staff. I mean, we've had potentially a couple of roofie situations go on over New Year's run, and people, look out for someone even in the scene. Like if some guys or some women have been behaving badly, like we will talk about it. And then like, I think there's some darker conversations again, like let's say couples breaking up and people feeling very uncomfortable about going to shows when you've lost your whole crew. How do you go to a show when like your boyfriend and all of your friends have chosen sides, and someone just, will usually anonymously will kind of confess that they love this band so much and it breaks their heart to lose this experience. And what do? And you have like 30 women being like, oh, sit in my hotel room, like, come, I'll give you a ride. Like, and people create brand new friendships and brand new life because they had the confidence to be like, I need to be at this show regardless of the people that I'm losing, So I think it strays from super fun to, empowering each other. Yeah. What am I missing? What am I missing that we can share?
No, I think that's great. I mean, kind of dovetailing off that, something that I really appreciate in the group is when ladies feel comfortable coming forward and looking for new friends or new music to see. So, for example, I help manage Space Bacon. And semi-recently, we had a gal who was looking for something music-wise to do while, the Biscuits were on a break and she was going to be going solo. So I wound up connecting with her and she came to her first Space Bacon show. Boom. Coincidentally, she runs into 12 members of And the Ladies at the Space Bacon show who she'd never met before. So now she instantly has 12 new friends. Right. And since then, she's been to a couple Space Bacon shows since. And, I just love that. I think it's really cool to see connections form out of random topics in the group and new strong female connections and bonds start to form. And another thing that I really love is seeing ladies in the group get creative, right? Showing off things that they made. Ever since that rollback with the fan merch, rightfully so, by the Biscuits, not wanting folks producing merch with their logo or directly Disco Biscuits citing call outs on the merch. We've seen some really creative female source merch items in the group that adhere to the band's rules. And we have a couple of vending days a week where ladies can kind of strut their stuff. And, you know, I saw something posted on the group today that was so friggin' awesome that I'm looking to buy it to rock at the Huntington shows coming up. So things like that bring me a lot of joy. Those are some topics that are pretty neat.
Well, let's talk about the topic of allyship and about the guys. How can the guys be better allies to the women in this scene?
Can I would like to say basically the way they are behaving online is the biggest thing. There are times where it's out in public or at shows where, you know, a guy might be a little bit too drunk and may take things a little bit too far with maybe touchy-feely, not getting the hint. But I really feel the whole cyberbullying has gotten out of hand. I'm a little bit old school the way I am. The way you see me here now is how I am in person. So I'm not going to hide behind a computer and bully somebody unless I'm going to do it to their face. So I think the way you are as a person in real life, you should portray that same image as you are online, just because everybody knows each other. It's literally 1 degree separation of Mark Brownstein. It used to be 2 degrees. Now it's literally 1 degree of separation of Mark Brownstein. Take that, Kevin Bacon. But it's just one of those. It's just one of those things where it's like we all know each other, and just because you think you look macho online, just remember, guys that are single, we see you and we will talk to each other about you. And if you don't get a girlfriend in the scene, that's probably why.
But we're not talking about specific men on a daily basis in public.
No, but in general.
Let's be clear
in general.
on that.
But I'm just saying in general.
Yeah,
it could be
you're
in
right.
general.
I mean, Naya, how many times have I come to you specifically and said, hey, this guy I think is kind of cute. Do you know him? And she's like,
Yep.
I've had relationships based on Naya's opinions specifically. We're 1 degree away from Naya is what it really is.
Yeah. I'm a social butterfly. Yeah. So it's you know, girls talk. We talk. That's what we talk about in the back.
Guys, you are on notice. You are on notice.
Guys, step up. Like,
but let's talk about the stepping up. So
Yeah.
point 1 from Naya is you can behave online the way you would be expected to behave in real life. If you wouldn't say it to someone's face, don't say it to their avatar. What else? What are some of the other things that guys can do better?
I think let's go to the other extreme. Like, it's very easy to be at a show with your bros or, you know, your gals or whoever. Meanwhile, there might be somebody behind you that, you know, is standing by herself or like maybe having to defend herself against someone who's being a little touchy-feely. You know, you can have a conversation with your friends at set break and still kind of like dart your eyes around and make sure that like everybody around you is chill. If you see someone that like looks a little shady kind of creeping into your space, you might want to keep an eye out for that. Like, I think everybody has the power to kind of keep each other safe and welcomed. But also when I say step up, like there's a lot of single women and single men in this group, and I wish more people had the more confidence to befriend each other and, you know, link up. Like, why wouldn't you want to date in our scene? Like, it kind of amazes me how many people are single on tour. We're all standing next to each other. And we're all having those like passionate moments, but no one actually knows how to flirt. So like, I don't know, do we need like a dating game or like a single speed dating or something? Like, I don't know.
I think this is a winning idea for the next Bisco Land.
Yeah,
I think that might be what Bis Connections is for.
Yeah. Yeah, but isn't that a joke group? Yeah.
It is.
It's both. It's both, though.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say that point number 2 is build up the courage to, if you are interested in someone, introduce yourself to them and be considerate.
Yeah.
Read the signs. If they're not interested, be respectful. Don't
You never know
overstep
who
any
our friends are,
boundaries,
too.
But put yourself out there and step up. Okay, what else? What else can the guys do? Anything else, Chelsea?
I don't know. I mean, I love my Biscuits guys a lot. I think something that the guys can do more of is like fluff the heck out of this band because they're on fire. Like we've got a lot of guys who are really recognizing the fire that has been produced from like 2022 on. But let's get even louder about that, because when we do, like, it hypes our boys up, and that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's up the positive energy, because I think it really does help the band continue on the trajectory that they're on, which is straight up gas.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, because one of the things that I've heard throughout this conversation is you guys talking about having a supportive environment where you are one another's cheerleaders, where positivity is the prevailing ethos. It might not always be positive, but you're trying to create a positive environment. Meanwhile, in our more integrated spaces, there is definitely a current of people who I think associate positivity with a form of weakness, or positivity as a quality that is to be avoided or to be shunned. That there's almost some kind of social status to be gained by demonstrating that, no, you hate that jam or that song more than anyone else. I've never really understood that. I'm here because I love this band more than I probably should. And their success is something that I enjoy vicariously. That gives me so much joy. To see them happy makes me happy. To see people at the show happy. One of my favorite things to do at a show is to turn around and look with a big smile on my face at all the other people who are smiling. When else in 2025 do you get to look around and see hundreds, if not thousands of people with the biggest smiles on their faces? And so I love the fact that you guys are talking about creating a community where positivity, without any kind of fear of being criticized or put down for being a fluffer, for being too positive, is going to blow back in your face.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the things I used to always say after reading certain critiques on Fantasy Tour or anywhere else is that the Disco Biscuits' worst enemies are their fans. When you would read, oh, well, that was horrible. Like, why is that set list or da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, dude, there's like 1,000 other people who just loved it and had the time of their life regardless. But guess what, dude? You still come back and you still continue to listen. So why do you feel that your opinion of negativity really matters that much? All it does is make you look like, a Richard. So no offense to anybody named Richard, but I'm trying to remain a lady here. And I mean, because that's, I wish I could be how I really want to be in real life, but that's besides the point. The thing is we do need to remain positive and remain respectful of the band. That is their career. I will never forget the time Barber looked at me. It was like 2009. It was random that Colleen Esmond said, "Hey, can you give Joey and Barber and them a ride back to their hotel?" And Mike Collins, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And we're in San Francisco, and I'm like, oh my God, Barber's going to be in the car next to me. Like, what? And he sat right down next to me, and I'm like, what do I talk about? And he literally mocked my music, which wasn't even my music. He was like, "You listen to Beck? Okay." And I was just like, what? It was funny and it was hilarious. But there was a moment where it was just him and I in the car for a second. And he said, "You must think it's easy to just wake up and be a rock star every day." And little did he know that I was a musician and I was playing at the time. And I said, "No, dude, I get it. Like, it's not easy. I think what you do is the most phenomenal thing. You are creating every single moment." So what they do is they put themselves out on the line. They make themselves vulnerable and they share something that is magical to them with the rest of us. That's what makes it so special. So, it's sometimes we just got to we can say, I didn't think it was the best version, but we're just, don't say it at all. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. Like, we're supposed to lift each other up, not put each other down.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone is ever suggesting, and I think the bubble of positivity, when it's used in a negative way, is used to suggest that mindless people are uncritically just gobbling up everything the band puts out without any sort of discernment or judgment. I think it's more about being grateful, recognizing that how close we came to not having this thing called Bisco. And as someone who, on my own volition, took a very long hiatus from the band, I know what it's like to not have the Disco Biscuits in your life. And I didn't at the time realize how big of a hole that it had left. But since I've been back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I get to have this much fun with these people. And I can't believe that I went that long without it. And I really encourage people who might be feeling a little jaded or feeling turned off by the bubble to just take some time off and to realize that this is not a given. You know, we are 30 years in here and we are blessed with every moment that this band continues to produce and that this scene gets to continue to thrive. It's a gift every day. And so, yes, you can be critical. You could say this house dog was not as good as that house dog, or this tour, I don't think matched up to fall tour, or whatever you're going to say. But making hating the band that you love your identity, that's just not appealing.
Yeah.
It's not cool.
Especially in a public forum. Like, I can understand if somebody says, oh my God, that, Country Royale was so sick. You don't have to attack them publicly. You could take your friend to the side and be like, hey, let's talk about this. Why do you think that? Or but to make a stamp in public, it just scares people off for wanting to be part of our community.
Yeah. Now, Naya, you had a fun story about BARBER. And I wanted to talk about the band a little bit. Are they aware of the existence of the group? And regardless, what's your sense of their relationship to these sorts of topics that give the group its purpose? You mentioned before, Laura, that Naya is petitioning for Jamelia to come back. The band has
not me.
No, just we in general.
The women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, stand corrected.
Okay.
Okay.
Certain songs from earlier in their career that maybe they don't feel as comfortable singing the lyrics to anymore. Topics, themes, the creation of safe and inclusive spaces at their shows or online. What is the relationship of the band to all of this?
I don't have the answer to that. We'll talk a little bit about 1230 later on in the show, but I put it out there that I created this group, and as a request for my 300 show, I would love to hear "And the Ladies" with a strong Jamelia tease, because we as women, like to be felt up. We like consent. We like to be asked to have pleasure. We don't think Jamelia is gross. But beyond that, I have not had the privilege to really talk to any of the band about the group. So I don't know the answer. I was very kind of scared to bring it up. So I would love to know what you guys think.
I don't remember if I've talked to band members about the group. I don't know. Maybe Mark and I have talked about it before, but without disclosing too much, I will say that, we have some partners of band members as members of our group. So I would assume that they have some knowledge of it. I'm pretty sure Mark and I must have talked about it at some point in time. As far as the awareness around the topic of women or folks identifying as females looking for a safe space, I don't know that that's come up in conversation. So I think, it's a good thing for them to be aware of. But I'm going to back Laura up. I mean, I do think we all need a Jamelia. I personally don't find it offensive at all. I think that would be an interesting poll to take. I know it's kind of risky and, a weird topic, but it doesn't make me feel the least bit uncomfortable.
It's not any weirder than talking about murder or, drug deals or any of the other sketchy, scary stuff that the band talks about in their lyrics. I don't think that pleasure is a bad thing. But just to go back to something that you just asked, we are definitely not sanctioned by the band. We are not, spies on the band or the scene. We are completely fan driven. So I hope the band knows about us, but I hope they aren't scared of us either. I think sometimes I'm nervous that the band thinks that I'm watching too hard or something like that. And I'm just here to have fun and make everyone more comfortable and make myself more comfortable. I come from this with love.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about is the presence of women as artists within the jam band community. And, there are some notable luminaries, Karina Reichman, Kanika Moore, Becca Levan from Solar Circuit. What's your perspective on the representation of women artists within the jam band community?
Well, it's interesting you ask that. I went to Beard Fest, my first Beard Fest a couple of years ago because I moved to the Philadelphia, South Jersey area a few years ago. And Beard Fest is not just a festival, but they have kind of a Burning Man element in that they have a lot of workshops and programs and talks and whatnot. And one of the talks was women in the music industry that Becca was talking about. And it was noon on a Sunday, we'd been partying for days, but I just set my alarm and I made sure I got there. And I was surprised that it was just me and her, but I hadn't met her before. And I got to actually, talk about what I do for our community and how much I admired her and, got a very special introduction to her world. There aren't, I don't know. I mean, there aren't enough female musicians, but for whatever reason, the ones that exist are really, truly amazing. And it's special to watch. I recently I'll say this. I recently was talking to a guy bassist, tend to hang out a lot with a lot of bass players. And this guy was like, oh, there's no women, bass players. There's no good women. I was like, Tina Weymouth, Karina Reichman, we just kept going. And he was like, oh yeah, okay. Cause you just don't think that, or maybe people don't even think that way. They just see bass player and they don't necessarily think about the fact that they have boobs,
I bet you guys didn't know that Chelsea has a very pretty voice.
Did not know you were a singer.
You didn't know that? I knew that.
I'm not going to be singing right now.
Are there musicians apart from Chelsea in the group? Do people share their music? I know you were saying people share their art, their clothing, their creativity, but are there other musical artists besides Chelsea in the group?
Becca's the only one that's coming to mind right now in terms of music, but we've got tons of artists.
Right.
Another one, without giving away too much identity, because I don't want to, put people on blast here, but we do have a nice gal who plays some ukulele that you might know of, Max.
I think she's been on the show, has she not?
There are actually two women who are accomplished ukulelists. I think I just invented that word. I don't think I'm blowing up anyone's spot by saying Amy and Lily, who have both contributed covers for our fan covers episodes. Mm-hmm. And I strongly encourage you to take this message back to the group that if any of the women in the group are performers and reinterpreting the Biscuits catalog in their own music, we would love to feature them on the podcast.
Sounds like a topic we need to start up any day now. Get some more women to show off their talents.
Another topic I wanted to talk about was intersectionality. And Naya, you mentioned earlier some of the experiences you've had in other jam band communities of feeling like an outsider because of your race. Gender, sexuality, racial identity, these are all factors that sometimes can make people feel excluded in spaces like the jam band scene, which tend to be not just male dominated, but cis, male, hetero, white dominated. Particular kind of class identity. I don't think it would be a stretch for anyone to conjure in their mind the image of the typical Disco Biscuits fan. And it's a very stereotypical bro. But I'm wondering to what extent things like race or sexuality or gender identity factor into the community and the conversations that you guys have.
So I have an interesting story about an experience I had at Dewey Beach. I think it's hilarious. I'm listening to the music and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really getting into it. And it was like right before, I think it was like right before the inverted shimmy. And this guy looks at me and he goes, oh, he's like, he's like, what do you think about the show? And I go, it's all right. You know, like I always do. I'm like, it's all right. And I mean, I was having a great time. And he goes, oh, don't worry. You just keep coming back. You know, it gets better and better. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then Morgan Boyle, I call him one of the ambassadors, came walking by and he's talking to me. And then he was like, see, like this guy, he's cool. And I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, wow, like he assumed that it was my first time ever seeing the Biscuits. That is a question I get asked a lot of times. Oh, is this your first time seeing the band? And I'm just like thinking, is it because I'm Black? I was standing next to a guy that his heritage is Indian, and he was one of the nicest guys, and he looks like Osh, speaker bot, but it wasn't him. I was like, aren't you Osh? And he goes, no. And I'm like, you look just like him. And then his friend confirmed it. He's like, dude, you look just like him. And he was like, are you saying that because I'm Indian? And I was like, dude, I'm not that person. Like, if you look like somebody, I'm going to tell you look like them. Even if you're like a Black or white Jay-Z, I'm going to say you look like Jay-Z. But what it comes down to is people just assume that I don't. It's like he assumed that I didn't belong there. And I'm just like, dude, I probably know the music way better than you do. I could probably call out half the songs way quicker than you ever could. But I'll let you have this one, buddy. And I mean, he was still nice, but at the same time, it was just like, don't assume. And I just, it's not everybody. It's very few and far between. But when it does happen, of course, I'm going to go with it and just kind of tease them a little bit. But yeah, I think it even goes that way for people who identify as transgender. I think the best thing to do is it doesn't matter what our personal opinion is. Who cares what we think? That person has every right to feel comfortable in their skin. And if that's how they feel comfortable in it, we don't need to understand. It's not up to us. It's up to us to remain respectful and kind because we would want them to treat us the same. So yeah. I just always think people shouldn't ever assume, but just be more welcoming and kind to each other.
Yeah, well said.
Max, would it be fair to say that when you and I were starting, and you were there in 99 too, the scene was more diverse by percentage? I mean, there were so many Asians, Indians, Black women, Black men. It was a much more diverse scene, and somehow all that we've only created, attracted seems to be the bro type. And I don't know why that is. I feel like it's kind of washed out, or certain people have backed off of the scene because for whatever reason. And I don't know why it's become so less balanced.
Yeah, I definitely can hear where you're coming from there. Thinking back to the crew of people I used to see shows with.
Yeah.
Carla No, Mitesh Rana, Avnil Dravid.
Avjob's still around.
Hody.
Yes.
He's come back.
Hody, little Hody.
Little Hody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sigrid. I mean, it's Carol.
Perhaps because it was a smaller group, we were able to experience that diversity. And there really was back in the 90s, and I don't put on my grandpa, my shawl sweater now.
Your Tom Hanks sweater.
My Tom Hanks sweater. We felt like the outsiders of the jam band community. We didn't feel like we fit in with everybody else. And so anyone who wanted to be in with us, boom, you're in.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You like this music? Cool. You're one of us.
Yes.
Come set up your tent next to mine, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
For Laura and I, you guys are now 27 years into this thing. And Chelsea, you're the newbie of the group. You're 16 years in. What's changed over the time that you have been a part of this scene? What have you seen? And I don't just mean what's changed, like I was saying, the fashion or the demographics, but what's different now than when you first came up?
I'll go. Yeah, so like I said, I'm a baby of '09. I think that at the time, I felt that women were definitely more of a minority in the scene, even at that time. And even though we had the internet, like, I don't even know, were Facebook groups a thing? There wasn't such a way to connect outside of like PT where folks were hiding behind their handles and things were kind of mean. So meeting other women at shows and, making friends at shows was different. And it's evolved over the last, 16 years or so that I've been seeing the band. Definitely with the emergence of more social media and ways to network and make friends, certainly this group, it's become easier to find like-minded women. There was a period of time too where I kind of bowed out of seeing the Biscuits. I was having kids and, doing all of my things too. But I think that this era that we're in right now is one of the most exciting. It's one of the times that, there's this huge influx of new faces and a lot of positivity going on. So I think that it is a stellar time to be a lady in the Biscuit scene.
Yeah. The bathroom line's not that much shorter for the girls' line anymore.
No, it's not.
Yeah, no doubt. I also think compared like in the late 90s till now, in the late 90s, there weren't people in their 40s really going to see the Disco Biscuits. I mean, if they were like an old head spun out, like dead head that was like, oh, I'm going to see the Biscuits, and they were just like cool as hell. But you might see like one or two, as with now that the young kid, like the core fan base is now in our 40s and 50s. We are now looking at the younger people and just kind of being like, hey, like it's going to be okay. Like we're more understanding of what our community has become.
Naya, you said something that I found to be really poignant, which was that when we all got started, the scene was young, the band was young. There weren't that many people over 30, let alone 40. Yeah. And now many of us are closing in on 50. The band members are in their 50s. You now have the benefit of being able, we all do actually, of being able to lend our experience to the next generation of fans. And this does not survive without a next generation. The band needs to continuously attract new fans. Yep. And as they do, there need to be old heads, male and female, who are willing to welcome them with open arms and also teach them the ways in which the scene operates. And it sounds like a big part of what the ladies can offer is that welcoming embrace coupled with, and here's how we keep this thing alive for another 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And that's something that I did notice that probably it seems like the fan base has recently changed. For a minute there, it seemed like the youngest people, like the younger crowd was probably like mid 30s. But now I'm starting to see with the Biscuits playing all of the various festivals for the last 2 years, 2 previous years, I'm seeing younger people come in that are being more involved in the certain groups, even though the younger people don't really get involved with Facebook, they're more involved with like, different social platforms. However, when they attend shows, it's nice to see the younger kids come through. And I mean, sometimes I'm like, man, I mean, I'll never forget when I came back from after having kids, I took a 2-year hiatus and I saw kids like partying and I'm like, what are they doing? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a mom. But I'm just like, wait a minute, that was just us not that long ago, Right. And but it's as long as we look out for each other, people are going to do what they want to do. But if we notice that somebody's dehydrated, give them water. If you notice that somebody's stumbling around and that they need to sit down, help them out. If you notice that the staff members are going over to somebody else because, hey, they look a little bit wasted, if that person's alone, I mean, for one, your friends should probably be there with you. But there's nothing wrong with going over and saying, "Hey, buddy, are you okay?" To kind of intervene so that they don't get in trouble and get thrown out, because they're willing to throw you out because they don't want that responsibility. So we just need to look out for each other a little bit more and just be more aware. Yes, be a friend.
Be a fucking friend.
I mean, yes, be a friend. I mean, you never know. You might end up marrying that person's brother or sister someday. And, you know, you just never know.
That just went in a different direction than I thought it was going.
I wanna throw a little anecdote in here. The Brooklyn shows back in November, I guess it was set break, and I met this boy, whatever. I think he was 18. It turned out to be Brownie's nephew, and he was very sweet. He's like the guy who, I taught Brownie how to play ukulele, and he was so sweet. Again, I'm 47, and I never even like crossed my mind like this is an 18-year-old boy. I wasn't trying to date him or anything. He was just a person. We were having a very normal conversation between two people, and it wasn't like he was like, oh my God, I'm talking to this older woman. And then I said, oh, so who are you here with if, you're young? And he was like, oh, I'm here with my dad. And I'm like, oh my God, your dad goes to shows? That kid is 30 years younger than me. Therefore, his dad is probably younger than me. But I had that moment of, your dad goes to shows? Ridiculous. Yeah. There's going to be people that are coming back to shows with their parents because their parents introduced them to this band. There's going to be kids that are coming because they find them in college, and they might bring their parents to shows. It goes all ways. I really don't see age in that way.
My dad's been going to shows since 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Biscuit shows or other bands?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I
need to meet your dad.
I've been going to shows with my dad since I was 7. I think Yes was the first one, but no, Joe Sorrento has been to quite a few Biscuits and Electron shows.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fuck yeah.
So what are some of the spin-off side projects, programs, things that the ladies have spawned? I know that it's not just the Facebook group. It's the Facebook group and fill in the blank.
I mean, it is mostly on Facebook, I would say. We have a side group called Healthy Ladies where people talk about, whether they have weight loss goals or nutrition goals or whatnot. Chelsea has started a new one recently that I'll let her talk about in a moment. One of the most amazing projects that I'm so excited to be a part of every year is the Secret Sister Santa program that Cheryl Madigan, and Sam Boone work on every year. They spend months leading up to it, putting out personal surveys on like, what are your favorite jewelry, your colors, your other bands, just ways to like inspire each other to get to know each other. And then they handpick partners. Like they don't just add it through an Elfster and say like, all right, you get you. Somehow they've given me people that I've been inspired. Trooper was one of the people that I got to give gifts to. And I actually had never really met her 30 years ago. She lived on the the West Coast, and I got to be like, you inspired the scene in so many ways. It was very touching. And everyone that has gotten me and vice versa has been amazing. And then people will get their gifts and they open it up and take pictures of it. And like, it's just such a magical thing to watch like 300 women share gifts to each other and really get to know each other and create lifetime memories. The t-shirt program that Naya was talking about, where we've raised money for charities and our women in our community in need, I think has been absolutely wonderful. And I'm excited to see that program come back. But Chelsea, I want to hear what you're working on.
Oh yeah, I have a nerdy one for you.
I love nerds.
Yeah, kind of nerdy, but kind of funny story. So recently, me and Harrison, my husband, have just noticed that I am consuming way too much television. And funny enough, a television show that I just finished watching, it was like a 7-season series that I watched in like 2 weeks. It was about books and publishing. And so it got me in the mindset of like, hey, I need to kind of get off this TV thing and start to read some more. So I started a spin-off club for the ladies. It's a book club, and it's all based around like dystopian and sci-fi books. And I was pretty stoked to get a group of like 40 of us together to do this book club where we're going to be meeting once a month to discuss the book. Bi-weekly is optional. But we just voted on and started our first book. It's called Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. So I'm like 10 chapters in. It's pretty cool. Like, I think it's the first book that ever referenced the metaverse. So I'm really enjoying that and the camaraderie and want to continue this. It's kind of a New Year's resolution for me to read more. And what more fun to do it than with a bunch of biscuits, ladies?
I kind of extended it, certain projects out to male and female. I started a group about a year ago. I invited Chelsea to be one of our moderators, and it's kind of slow, but it's called the Bisconauts. And it's basically just a place where we can just be nerdy and just talk about the biscuits. It's anything that's pertaining to the biscuits. It's kind of like it's funny, the Biscuits Facebook group. However, it's more about the way we're trying to find like the show of the year is like taking each leg, voting on it, collecting it information, and then doing it like that. Like it's more like a scientific ordeal. And then from being in the ladies, Trooper reached out and asked if anybody was familiar how to use certain programs for the internet because the Biscuits Internet Project was looking for more people. I don't know anything about that stuff. I mean, you could show me how to do stuff, I'll pick it up. However, being involved with them, I was able to contribute to like certain things that are considered like all-time jams. If I hear something, I can mention it. Especially, I like to get involved where there's really no female voice. It's kind of important that even if it's just one or two females involved, it's nice to have. I mean, I've been invited to be an admin in the Biscuits because Kevin Klein, who saw that I was very vocal in the group, he said, "Would you be an admin because you're always like keeping people in line?" And it's not really keeping people in line, but like engaging with people. He just noticed that I was doing that kind of stuff. So it's Anna Ladies kind of helped me step up to being more confident again, because if you're a mother, you know that basically your children are your world. That's all you're focused on. And you kind of tend to forget about yourself. Like, what are the things that make me happy? Because I'm worried about my husband. I'm worried about my kids. What am I doing? Like, what about me? And Anna Ladies kept me involved with what's going on in the Disco Biscuits community, that I was so grateful for. I mean, it really did keep me in touch with what's going on, the music, everything. So it's just certain groups like that I've just been more involved with. And because of that, there's even more projects that I'm being invited into, which is mind blowing. I'm not going to blow that spot up just yet, but I mean, I'm just forever grateful.
Well, as a way of wrapping things up, I thought I would give you all the opportunity to share a favorite Biscuits moment, because on Touchdowns All Day, we are all about talking about those moments that change us, the musical moments, the way back in the day, I coined the term bagak to describe them, the moments that we'll never forget. And I would love to hear from each of you. If you had one that you've held on to for all of these years, if you could share it with the Touchdowns All Day audience.
I've definitely been begawked before. But for me, it's honestly a toss-up between 7/18/09 and the Revolution in Motion album release party, which is two starkly different eras. But let's be honest, I think the vibes have been like very 09 as of late, if I do say so myself. So Camp 8, 7/18/09, Nighttime Set 1, the entire set for me was really mind-blowing, and I think it's my favorite set ever, specifically that Park Avenue into Caterpillar when we got those really epic Gates of Hell. It just truly blew the lid off of my 19 or 20-year-old skull. then also being at the Revolution in Motion album release party and seeing my favorite band absolutely crush every single song on the album was honestly like a dream come true, I think, for both the fans and the band alike. And I'll just say Space Taxi 4L.
Well, Chelsea, you and your husband Harrison have been unbelievably vocal supporters of the entire Revolution in Motion project, including Harrison recommending the jam that would famously go on to become To Be Continued. And so it's only fitting that that release party should be that culmination of more than 15 years of supporting the band, and it being a thing that you and your husband share together. And I would imagine that's been a very beautiful part of your relationship, that you make music together, that you have a family together, but you also chase those musical moments with the Biscuits together.
Absolutely.
So, people always say like the answer to that's like, what's your favorite moment in a show? And people will joke like, oh, it's the next one, or it's the last one. And mine also is a very recent show. My 300th show was on 12/30 of 2024, just a couple of weeks ago. And I won't say that show was best ever for me because of the end, the ladies that encored, although I did request it and I was so gracious to receive it as an encore to close off that show. But the moment that I was fully begawked was about 2 seconds into the second set. After that ridiculously powerful, almost masculine, if you will, Reactor Boys to Men medley, Country Royale was a very manly first set, but still very, very, very important and enjoyable for me. Band comes back to the stage and starts Crickets, and like 2 seconds into that song, I was tickled by the fact that like it felt like that entire show had been written for me. I'm sure it's just all in my mind, but to me, my first birthday show was 12/5/01, and it has a very important reactor into Crickets. So to take that reactor, to take that Crickets, and make that, the centerpieces of those two sets, it just blew my mind. And to cap it off with 2001, I don't know if anyone did any research on me or if it was just so important to me, but every moment of that show. But then, I got that ladies, and that was the icing. It was just a perfect night.
I have to say, Laura, it was really fun looking over at you throughout that night, seeing you on Cloud Nine, knowing it was your 300th show.
300, man.
An amazing milestone, and knowing that they were playing songs that you wanted to hear in ways that you wanted to hear them. You were ecstatic, and it was really heartwarming to see you, someone I've known now for 27 years, to have that moment of celebration. Yeah.
I mean, I'll say first techno-ish Country Royale, City Girl approved. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing.
All right, Naya.
What you got?
I have two of them. The first one I would say is 12/29/04. Some people might remember Wissa. We've lost her back in 2006. She convinced me to go back to see the Biscuits in 2004 after not seeing them for about 2 years. And it was like that Kitchen Mitts opener, which I think Kitchen Mitts is the greatest love song ever written, because let's face it, like every love story has a sad ending. But it's true that, you have to give it your all in order to make it work, and not everybody does. So to hear that opener I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But to get that encore of Eulogy and the Bassist, it was like a 30-minute bassist. And I'm like,
What?
okay, yeah, this is what it's about. It was just a full-on dance party, and it's the iconic basses that you hear on "When It For to Fly." It's just one of the best dance parties ever, and just seeing everybody at the end of the show not being so like tired. Everyone was just getting down. Nobody cared at the E Factory of all places. Like that is, the end-all be-all when it comes to the Biscuits for me. And then the second one that comes to mind that's more recent is 9/7/24. I love Colorado. It's my favorite state in the world.
Yeah.
And being at the Mish, that's the way I decided to celebrate my 45th birthday. And even though my birthday was the next week, I was like, okay, it's the whole month. So I'm going to celebrate it, Colorado. And Tara got a picture of me during the flight of the hot air balloon, and I'm crying. And it like showed up on Facebook. I'm like, no, like I don't want to be seen crying. But literally that moment for that, like, oh my gosh, that hot air balloon into Shamrock Blue. I heard like 5 minutes into, like, before Shamrock dropped, I was like, Ryan, I'm talking to my friend Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, they're gonna play Shamrock Blue, and he was like, no, they're not. I'm like, watch. And they did. They dropped into it, and then that is C2B. And then the flight, it was just so beautiful. And it's just one of those things that kind of just was a full circle. And I mean, it made me think about my life, about where I've been, where I am now, my family, and everything. And so I was just completely moved, and I just still can't believe she got me crying. It was, I laugh at it, but it just, people told me, they're like, I could tell what you were feeling by that photo. And I was like, because I was just standing there going, yes, like you can see me go, yes. And I mean, it's just, it was a very moving experience.
It's a gorgeous picture, and I think it's safe to say that you were under a spell that night.
I was.
Just like we all were.
And that was another moment that I was fortunate enough to be able to witness, because much like seeing you, Laura, experience the ecstasy of your 300th show, I kept looking up at the little VIP balcony where Naya and Ryan and some of our other friends were posted up during that show, knowing how much they would love the set list selection of that first set, and turning and locking eyes with Naya and Ryan and seeing the two of you just in heaven. It's what I was describing before. Where else can you go and look around and see so many familiar faces and see so many people be so happy? It's really just the most wonderful thing. And
right back at you, Max. Like you're bouncing up and down. Like Max. I can instantly find you and like ground myself. If I feel lost in a crowd, I look for you, and I'm just like, all right, I'm home. I'm good.
The downside of being a tall, gangly freak.
Well, you have a very affectionate smile, and you light up. When you light up, it's just hard for somebody else not to beam even harder. So it's all around. It really is all around.
Well, there's a lot to smile about right now.
We love you.
Laura, Chelsea, Naya, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Thank you for everything you do to nurture the community that you have over there at The Ladies. And thank you for all that you do for the Disco Biscuits community at large.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Well, there you have it. Laura Heifetz, Nia Seaton, and Chelsea Waxenberg of And the Ladies. Touchdowns All Day is an Osiris Media production. This episode was written, produced, and edited by me, Max Dawson, and was mixed and mastered by Matt Dwyer. Check us out at www.touchdownsallday.com and use the hashtag touchdownsallday on all social platforms. Barber and I would love to hear from you. You can reach us at the Touchdowns All Day hotline, 424-666-SIYD. John is at Barber Shreds, and I'm at FY Maxwell on all social platforms. You can also hit us up at TDAD Baby on X and at Touchdowns All Day on Instagram. This and every episode of Touchdowns All Day would not be possible without the contributions of many women and men. And that includes the Disco Biscuits road crew. Ben, Pat, Nick, Brian, Rich, Dane, Amin, Herm, and Tara. The band itself, Mark, John, Aaron, and Alan. The management, Ben Baruch and Andrew Kaplan at 1111. The Touchdowns All Day Advisory Committee, Andy Bazzani and Mike Walsh at the Biscuits Internet Project, Russ Tabes, Dave Cook, Scott McClintock, Rich Steele, Ian Armstrong, John Goldberg, John Polides, Colin Stern, and Ryan Ryonix. Our multimedia producer, Alex Mazer. Coaches, Joey Friedman and Steve Martocci. And of course, as we end every episode, I'd like to give my most heartfelt thanks to our partners, Lisa Gutwillig, Deb Brownstein, Angelica Magner, Sandra O'Quinn, Andrea Rivers, and Avery McMahon. On behalf of John Barber and the entire Touchdowns All Day family, this is Max Dawson saying see you next time.
We're mass communicating. Mass communicating. Mass communicating.
Osiris.